And we are live. So welcome, everyone. I want to welcome everybody to the first episode of MidDay Café Live. Just as a quick shameless plug, you can always follow MidDay Café. We'll have all the podcast recordings up on the HLS blog, but there's so much more that you can find there. So I'm going to post that out and I'll make that available. You can find us, though, at aka.ms/HLS blog. That's aka.ms/HLS blog. We have some great people, some great content today. I'm going to be going into mute in just a moment, but for today, we're going to be hosted by Mr. Scott Moore, and we are going to be joined by our expert on all things Survivable Branch Appliance, Filipp Seljanko. Did I say it right?
Correct.
I forgot it in between. All right. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over. Scott, you want to kick off your segment? I'll go silent and then you guys take it away.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. So I'm Scott Moore. I'm a Teams technical specialist. So we also invited Filipp here so that he can give us a little bit of information around Survivable Branch Appliance. So I'll turn it over to Filipp and let's get started. Go ahead, Filipp.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Filipp, and I'm the product manager for Teams Direct Routing and all of its components, including Survivable Branch Appliance. Today, I'm going to be speaking about what is it, how it works, what you need to or should expect from it, and also how it behaves both for the end user and the administrator who is able to configure it. First of all, when we talk about the voice resiliency in Teams, that's the ability of end customer to continue making and receiving phone calls during the outage when there is no internet or no connection to the Microsoft Cloud, but there is still PSTN connection on site. The intention is to have the option for the users to continue talking on phones while using Teams even during such outages. When we talk about SBA or Survivable Branch Appliance, we are talking about independent software that Microsoft has created and that is distributed as a bundle with a session border controller firmware through a set of our SBC vendor partners. What the actual SBA is, it's kind of a local copy of an essential components that make direct routing operational and that allow Teams client to understand that, okay, we have an outage, but I have a way out. Here is the set of the user privileges. Here is the way for me to communicate with the session border controller. Here is the set of voice routing policies for this user, and so on and so on and so on. And we have collaborated on this product with 4 SBC vendors. They are Audio Codes, TE Systems, AnyNode, Oracle, and Ribbon. In essence, when we talk about how it works, how it operates, during the normal operations, as you can see, the SBA is in the middle between Teams client on a user's machine or phone or even Teams phone and the session border controller. It's connected to the cloud and constantly updates the configuration for the local users in this site. So the essential thing is that SBC needs to be on site and the users in this site need to be configured for the SBA. That way, SBA knows that, okay, this is the local user. I can download all the information required for this user, and during the outage, these users can make and receive phone calls. Teams client operates as usual while we have the connection with the Microsoft Cloud. It gets all the required information from the cloud, and it only lets SBA know that I have a connection, everything is okay, keep idle. Then, during the normal operations, client communicates with SBC directly, and SBC understands that this user wants, for example, to make a call to this phone number, and they are permitted to do it. And then SBC is connected to the PSTN on the outside and can then send the call further to the carrier. And SBC forks all the signaling and media, if needed, with both cloud and the SBA. When we have an outage, meaning either an internet outage in this local site or the whole geo region, Azure geo region goes down. So there's no connection to our cloud infrastructure. Teams client tries to establish, is this real outage or just a fluke in the network, and we can re-establish the connection. When there is no connection, then it triggers the mode that it tells SBA, okay, we are in an outage mode, we need to operate through you. And that way, it requests all the required information to make or receive calls for this specific user that is behind this Teams client from the SBA. As I previously mentioned, we keep updating this info constantly. So if a new user is added to the site or a user is erased from the site, it's almost certain that that information will get to the SBA very, very soon, in a matter of seconds. And SBA also sends a signal to the SBC. Now you listen to me, cloud is unavailable. And so the operation as is continues because nothing changes for the SBC. They still get all the information, both signaling and media streams from the Teams client. They still receive all the administrative information, let's go that way, from the SBA, and they are still connected to the outside world through the PSTN. If there is no PSTN connection, that's a very bad story. So even SBC cannot reach out, and that way an alternative source of communication needs to be found. For example, cellular network or something like modem, ADSL, and so on and so on. But in case SBC on-site is connected to the PSTN, the SBA, Survivable Branch Appliance, will keep on operating. Neither administrator nor end user need to do anything during the outage, meaning that they don't need to flip a switch to the SBA. They keep on as is. Once configured, SBA can keep on running for quite a long time. And when, for example, call is received or call is performed by a Teams user, call history gets preserved inside SBA. We have a dedicated databases that capture all the information as during normal operations. And when internet is reestablished, SBA connects to the cloud and uploads all the required information back to the cloud. So all of the call history is preserved. You never lose any information on received or made calls. And when we talk about capabilities, supported capabilities in current iteration of SBA, we're talking about supporting inbound PSTN calls. So when somebody dials your number from the outside world and you are in the local office that has no internet connection, but we have SBA, your Teams client will keep on running and you will receive a notification about incoming call in your Teams client on your device, like laptop, on your mobile phone, or on Teams phones that are updated to the latest firmware. Outbound PSTN calls also. You will be notified, and I will show you the user experience, that it's an outage, but you are still able to dial a phone number. So one big difference is that you will not be able to click on a person's icon to dial their phone number, but you will be able to dial a number, and that will actually establish a call, and you will be able to connect to that user through PSTN call, not a VoIP call, but a PSTN line. All the call normal operations or controls like mute, unmute, hold, resume will work. DTMF tones also. As I previously mentioned, call history will be uploaded back when you have the internet connection. And we have a time limit. So the SBA at the moment in current iteration is up to 24 hours. So it doesn't mean that when the internet is gone, you will have 24 hours. No, it's related to the authentication tokens that teams are using to actually understand that this specific user can log in into the client and can perform operations. So they get updated once in 24 hours, and thus, if an outage comes, it might be shorter than 24 hours that you will be able to use SBA. Yes, we are working on that, and that's one of the shortcomings that we are targeting to get rid of quite soon. Also, at the moment in current public version, we are not supporting VoIP resiliency, meaning that VoIP calls, one-to-one calls, are not supported. You can only dial a number of another person, not click on their icon. All the so-called UI features that you have to manage your contacts, or like speed dial and voicemail, they're not supported as they rely on the cloud infrastructure that needs to be available for them to be performed. The same, we don't support escalation to multi-party. This is only one-to-one calls. And voice apps, as we call them, call queue, auto attendant, delegation, consult transfer, and call forwarding, they are not supported by the SBA because they rely on the infrastructure that resides in the cloud and that knows whom you need to dial and what you need to, or what we need to know about your accounts in order to connect you to forward the call during the blind transfer, for example. We're working on that, but at the moment in public version, it's not supported. When we talk about user experience, it's very simple, and we try to make it as simple as possible and as, I would say, organic as possible. When everything is operational, nothing changes. There are no external things you need to do as an end customer on your device, on your machine, to actually be able to use SBA. Just operate Teams as you usually do. When there is connection loss, Teams client tries to reestablish it back. And if we have, for example, 10 seconds of this silent time, and then we start preparing the SBA that looks like it's an outage. If 15 to 30 seconds pass and we're still in offline mode, meaning we don't have connection to the cloud, then client notifies the Survivable branch appliance, this virtual machine that is running on the SBC, that, okay, we have an outage, please switch in and take control. And here, Teams client shows this banner that there is no internet connection, but calling is available through phone numbers that you can dial phone number on the dial pad and you will get connected, including 911 calls. If you try to switch on or click on a person's icon, as they were here in speed dial, then you will be notified that there is no internet and this functionality is not supported. So please expect that, but you still can use Dialpad. And once again, to reiterate that the error message will appear when you would try to do all of those complex in-client scenarios like adding contacts, removing contacts from speed dial, removing contacts from the list, and so on and so on. So those operations are not supported. When we talk about the admin experience, how to set it up, how to make it operational, it's quite simple. First of all, you need to get the latest firmware for your session border controller. We, in partnership with, as I previously said, Audio Codes, T-Systems AnyNode, Ribbon, and Oracle, we created a solution that SBC has the built-in image of the Survivable branch appliance. SBA is a virtual machine running on Windows Server that gets spin up on the SBC through, for majority of those except Oracle, through the standard SBC administration UI. You can configure the SBA as you want through that dashboard that SBC vendors provide to you. And then you can do the PowerShell command-led setup of users for this SBA. Some of the SBC vendors also provide the UI experience for that. So it depends on your specific SBCs, and it depends on how you prefer to do the configuration, via the UI experience or via the command-leds. It's for you to choose. For Oracle specifically, we have a separate distribution channel, and please reach out to your Oracle representative and they will let you know how you can get the image, the SBA MSI image that you then can deploy together with the Oracle SBC. So in order to configure the SBA, you need to register the users for this site, meaning that when you have set up the SBA on the site's SBC, you then need to tell that this specific user is the user in this site, or they can use the SBA while roaming. For example, a user can travel from one country or from one city to another city, and you as an administrator can still set up that they can use SBA in both countries or both cities. It's totally supported. Multiple user registrations or single user registration on multiple sites. And when outage happens, neither administrator nor user need to do anything. It's fully automatic, and it's between Teams client and the SBA and the SBC. You also, as a user actually, or as an administrator user, have a full accessibility to the call data records, or CDRs. Some of the SBC vendors, they allow you to even access them during the outage, but anyway, you, as I previously said, will get it after the outage is over and SBA uploads back to the cloud all the call history, and you will see it as normal calls in the admin portal. And if you need to remove or add permissions to the user, that can be done only during normal operations. During the outage, you cannot edit the users, and in current iteration, you cannot add new users to the site. For example, a new employee has just arrived and they haven't yet been set up for this specific local site SBA. Unfortunately, at this moment, you don't have that option to add them during outage. We know that, and we received a feature request for that. So we are looking into developing it in the future. And overall, when we talk about the functionality that we are working on or that we have in our backlog, then it actually is addressed through known issues, meaning that we are looking into supporting one-on-one VoIP calls. We are looking into extending the outage support for more than 24 hours. We are also looking into how can we support more complex scenarios, and very interesting situation that was actually reported to us from real life, where even the SBC, Session Border Controller, if it loses external connectivity to the PSTN network, to actually support still local resiliency and option for local users to be able to call each other. Disclaimer that some SBC vendors already allow you to do this call redirect, where the signal goes from the SBA or from the Teams client through the SBA to the SBC. And then if the recipient is on site, the SBC will not route the call to the outside world, but will find that user in the site and will route the call through the SBA to that second local user. It's not supported by all. Those that have it, they actually have a description in their SBA setup documentation about that. And that's pretty much it regarding how Survivable Branch Appliance works, what it supports now, what we are working on, and what we are expecting to deliver in the future.
That's awesome. I definitely have a lot of questions there, Filipp. You definitely covered a lot of scenarios there. From a planning perspective for administrators, are there any special considerations that administrators should think about when they're deploying a Teams SBA as part of the planning for a location?
So they definitely need to think about the local session border controllers, or at least connectivity from a local site to a session border controller if it resides in another office. If their, for example, CorpNet supports this, multiple sites can be connected to a single SBC, and resiliency through SBA can be configured for all of those sites as a bundle for the on-site users. So they need to think about it. And also, definitely, they need to start working early with SBC vendor partners, because different partners have different billing models, have different packages, either including SBA or excluding SBA from a normal image. So the sooner the administrator notifies the SBC vendor that we need the resiliency here and we would like to have so many offices with so many SBAs, the more help the both Microsoft and SBC vendors can provide.
Are there any capacity limits on the number of users that can be supported per location under SBA?
It depends only on the session border controller.
Okay.
The number of sessions that it can support. From SBA, it's almost unlimited.
Okay, that's good to know. Are there any gotchas as for planning purposes around deploying? Anything that you mentioned? Definitely today, if a user is not part of the SBA policy, they need to be added. So, are there any other gotchas that you can think of as part of that planning and deployment model?
So, definitely think of it as quite simple solution at the moment. Don't expect complex scenarios. It's the basic functionality that allows users PSTN calls, and at the same time, it's quite complex in itself, meaning that in order to make it work, it was quite a hard process to develop this local proxy of all the services that we have in the cloud and keep them in a small package. So when you plan, I would also try to keep to as simple architecture as possible, try to have a resiliency through a local SBC in every site if possible, especially in critical sites like mining facilities, nuclear plants, and others. And also, when we talk about using complex voice apps, that's one of the things that many people don't understand, that for example, auto attendant functionality or call queue functionality, they are based on cloud bots. So in order to pull them into the call, it needs to be first expanded to a multi-party call and also send media to the cloud. So during the outage, it's totally impossible as we don't have connection to the cloud, and that can create complex situations where people don't understand what's happening and why it's not operating. So I would definitely have this exercise where you, for some time, for a pilot team of users, you simulate this outage and you observe their behavior on site, and then based on that behavior, create a set of rules for the outages. I know from my personal experience through the incidents reported to us that sometimes people expect much more and they don't get sufficient information and guidance for the situation of outages. So it's always good to have these fire drills in advance with your customers and your users.
Definitely. I do like how you presented and mentioned that it's for the most part set it and forget it. So from an administrative perspective, if you do have an outage, then nothing needs to be done on the administrator side or the user side. So it's automatically there. I do like that.
Correct.
That's really cool. So you mentioned some of the things that you guys are looking at, those things that are not available today. So you're definitely looking at those. Any other things that you guys are looking at from a roadmap perspective that we can talk about?
So one thing that we are open to any requests and feature requests, and are happy to talk with customers to go through their exact scenarios. I know that there are situations where it's really is critical, and at the same time, we never even could think of that the teams would still be needed to be used during this extreme situation. One of the examples was during the floods or flooding in a certain area. Local network between cities or between government offices was still operational, but no PSTN and no internet. And in that situation, in our mind before, when we were thinking about SBA, we were more focused on, well, if there is no internet connection, then most probably there is no LAN connection and only PSTN can serve. But in that case, even PSTN was cut, and that's where we've been asked to look into scenario to have this local survivability for the users that are either on site or if within this local area network that are between offices. And yes, there are some unique scenarios that really like when in mining facilities underground, there are those common area phones that need to be supported, that need to be operational, even between just the user, the miner, and the operator in the main building, even without PSTN. So that was also one of the unique scenarios that we are looking into. So we are open to hear about your specific unique cases that you think SBA should apply to. And of course, we are looking into combining survivable branch appliance with other components of the direct routing, such as local media optimization. Local media optimization is quite huge. It's now adopted by many enterprises globally, and that one is at the moment not supported with the SBA, meaning that in a scenario where you have a proxy SBC that is visible to the outside world, to the Microsoft Cloud, and behind these proxy SBCs, we have a set of downstream SBCs that are only internal. They are not visible to the internet. They have only internal IPs and communicate only through this proxy. So those scenario we're also looking into and thinking how we could support survivability of those sites that are behind those downstream SBCs.
Cool.
That's another thing that is not mentioned on the slide.
So just for clarity, so we do have support today for common area phones with SBA. Is that correct?
Teams phones specifically.
Teams phones, right? Common area
Teams phones
okay.
with latest firmware that was released in autumn 2021.
So you would just apply the SBA policy to the common area device. Is that correct?
Correct.
Cool. This is awesome. Anyone else have any other questions so far?
Trying to come off mute there. No, I don't have any questions, but I guess the big point is with all of this, as people are looking, for options, right? Especially with voice, because it's so paramount. And there's a lot of functions that, if they go offline, there's a tolerance for a certain amount. But in this particular case, we have options to really raise that level of survivability, availability, resilience through this. And so, this is something that people should look at. Now, Filipp, is there anywhere places that people should go where they can find more information? What would be their next steps from something if they, if they're listening or they watch this, what would be their next steps moving out of this?
So we have a public documentation on docsmicrosoft.com related to direct routing, and we have a dedicated section on Survivable branch appliance. That's one good source with the links to the SBC vendors that have a support for the SBA. Awesome. The other source are actually those SBC vendors. So if you have one of those that I have mentioned, AudioCodes, T-Systems, Oracle, and Ribbon, you can reach out to them and ask for the latest distributive of the SBC firmware with an SBA inside.
Excellent. Great. I mean, that's all I have. Anything else from you, Scott?
I'm good. This was fantastic.
Any last words, Filipp?
It's my pleasure to present it. And as I said, we are constantly working on the SBA, and I am very excited that in hopefully near future, I will be able to announce some good news in that area specifically. And definitely, please try it out. It doesn't interfere anyhow with your normal operations, and it's good to have this resiliency, even if you think that you will always have an internet connection, even if you think that everything is so thoroughly set up that it never will break. Still, life shows that it's good to have this option. And as I said previously, you don't need to do anything to switch to the SBA during the offline situation.
Awesome. Well, then what we'll do is we'll make sure we have the links to what Filipp cited. We'll have the links for the .docs, and then certainly again ask your vendors if you have any one of the ones that he mentioned there. And with that, I think we're good. So I want to thank both Scott and Filipp. You guys are awesome. Filipp, especially you. You brought us some great information that I think is very pertinent when people are talking voice and the whole idea of resiliency of those systems. And I want to thank everybody who tunes in to listen to this. Have a great day. Take care. And as always, from MidDay Café, a midday cup of hot steaming goodness. Have a great one, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Goodbye, everyone.